G'day Junior Techies, and welcome to this video on better understanding and solving for pedigree diagrams. What we're going to have a look at here is we're going to be looking at how to trace different traits through a family tree. Here's a nice example for us to work through. We're going to be looking at severe combined immunodeficiency syndrome, SCID. So we'll look at this as an example and how it is traced through a pedigree diagram. So here you can see that the diagram we're given a number of individuals that are identified, individuals 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We get given a key, and it's important for us to reflect on this key as we move through our pedigree diagram. We can see that a square that is not colored in is a male without the syndrome. If we look at the square with colored in black, we'll see that this is representative of a male that is got the syndrome, and then the same with a female, except that the gender is shown to us by a circle instead of a square. So the first thing we have to do when we are looking at a pedigree diagram is understand whether or not the condition is linked to any one of the gonosomes, which are the sex chromosomes. In most of the cases, the sex chromosome X will carry some sort of a recessive allele, which will result in the syndrome at the end of the day, or the disorder. In this case, SCID is what we're dealing with, and we'll see that this X gonosome with a recessive D means that this syndrome, SCID, is present on that specific gonosome. That means that this is a sex-linked disorder or a sex-linked condition, which we could quite easily track through a pedigree diagram. So the first thing for us to do is to understand if it's a recessive or a dominant allele, and we can see that on this X gonosome it is a lowercase letter d, and that's representative of a recessive allele. Trying to place the condition in our pedigree diagram, we'll always start with the males when it comes to a sex-linked condition, because the males will either have the condition or not, and because this is carried by the X gonosome, it's quite easy to place it in a combination for the males. So we're going to write down the gender combination. So obviously for all of the males, we'll see that we have XY, XY, XY. The only thing left for us to do is to determine whether or not there is the dominant allele for the normal expression. So in other words, without the occurrence of SCID, which would be the dominant on the X gonosome, because the recessive allele is the one that actually causes the expression of SCID at the end of the day. So the second step would be to show the genders of the females. So we're going to be putting these in, and then we are going to be adding whether or not the recessive or the dominant allele is going to be present in the combination of the XX gonosomes, which result in the female gender. So here, firstly, let's have a look at the males. Here we have a female with the expression of SCID, which means the only way this could happen is if we have the homozygous recessive pairing of the alleles on the X gonosomes. And if we look at the males, it's quite easy to fill these in, because if the male has the genetic disorder or condition, they're going to be carrying the recessive allele on the X, and if they don't, they're going to be carrying the dominant allele on the X. There isn't a second X gonosome to carry an alternate allele for that specific gene. Therefore, if they carry the recessive allele, it's going to be present in the phenotype, and if they carry the dominant allele, they'll be normal for that genetic condition. Let's have a look at the male, number 1. Not too sure how to figure this one out. If we analyze the pedigree diagram, we'll see that persons 3 and 4 are the offspring of the parents 1 and 2. And if we have the expression, as we do in individual number 4, as being a female that carries the recessive allele on both of the X gonosomes, we'll know that in order for this to take place, is that we will have one of these X gonosomes being donated or being received by the mother, and the other X by the father. So if we're looking at person number 1, it only makes sense that person number 1 is going to be carrying the recessive allele on the X gonosome as well. And being a male, this means it is expressed as the condition, and we can identify it and represent it as so. Person number 2 is going to be heterozygous for this SCID condition. And that means that person number 2 becomes a carrier. The phenotypic expression isn't there, but the allele with the genetic condition SCID is present. We can carry on and solve the rest of our pedigree diagram and make sense of the entire family tree. We'll look at the possible combinations of these alleles at the bottom of the page over here, and you'll see that for a male, having the recessive allele means having the genetic condition SCID. For a female, in the homozygous dominant combination, they would not have the condition. In the heterozygous pairing of those alleles, they would not have the condition. The only time that they would have the condition is with the homozygous recessive pairing of these alleles. And this is interesting to note because it would mean that there would be more males with this condition in this specific family tree than there would be females. I hope this has helped and helped the understanding around pedigree diagrams. If you follow the simple step-by-step solving of the pedigree diagram as we've done it in this video, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to solve these systematically. One thing I do want to leave you with is that not all pedigree diagrams deal with sex-linked recessive conditions. Be very sure that you understand the context of the question before you try and solve your pedigree diagram. Thank you very much. Remember that this is only one video in a series of videos dealing with our understanding of genetics. Please access the others for the bettering of your understanding moving forward.